Awesome, everyone. Today we are live on the SEO Leadership Webinar, and today we have such an exciting guest. We have on Rise at 7's Head of Marketing, Ray. He's going to be joining us today to chat about both search and social. So if you are working in those spaces, pop your comments below. We would love to chat about them. Ray's previous working experience with companies includes HomeServe, UK, Monzo Bank, Era, Raw Social, and The Body Shop, and so much more. Ray has been killing it with content and campaigns and strategizing. He emphasizes that he's all about finding where the digital world's attention is via researching native content styles and audience engagement. Some of his SEO and social feats include 40% increase in conversions and also 100,000 organic followers gained in 24 months. So Ray is such an exciting guest that we have on today, and thank you so much for joining us, Ray. How are you keeping today?
Thank you guys for having me. It's really cool to be here. I've seen so many of these over the last couple of years. I suppose I've seen so many like cool people coming here, so it's amazing to be able to be here. And yeah, I'm good today. How are you both?
Good. We're excited it's a Friday. Another month just flying by us, but yeah, we're doing good.
It does feel like that, right? We've literally gone from January straight into January was the longest month ever, and all of a sudden like February, where's it gone? And all of a sudden we're in March. Like, what's going on?
Yeah, we were still trying to prepare our Q1 plans and stuff, and now we're almost moving into Q2, but it's crazy. But yeah, Ray, for everyone that's listening, we usually like to start off our webinars by asking our guests to sort of give a little breakdown on their career progression, how they got into their role, and how they sort of progressed into where they are now. So if you could just tell us a little bit about how you got into marketing and how you got to where you are now over at Rise at 7.
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, it's been a bit of a crazy journey, to be honest. So I started my career off actually building Instagram accounts. So I had my own personal Instagram account, which I grew to quite a large following. And then that account actually ended up getting taken down. So that was actually when I was a lot younger. And I learned a lot about Instagram through that. So as a result, I went on to building multiple different Instagram accounts. So things like news pages, meme pages, all those kind of like content related pages. Sorry, my dog is going a bit crazy. Leo, come here. So yeah, I went into that for a little while, and I realized that, I've actually kind of got a skill for doing marketing, social, and I really enjoyed it. Like, I think at school, I wasn't really too passionate about like education. I wanted to go out and just do things for myself. I wanted to learn, and I felt like social media was just the future at the time. And yeah, so I ended up doing that for a little while, and I realized, I can do this for brands as well, and ended up working for a bunch of different brands, freelancing, mostly on the social side of things, from Instagram, TikTok, all organic. And that went really well for a little while until, of course, COVID hit, which at that point is when all my freelance clients were like, okay, we're going to cut our budgets down for marketing. And I was like, okay, well, I was at uni. I just finished uni, and I was like, I need to actually go and get a job now. So ended up falling into SEO. Started off my career as like an SEO exec, worked my way up straight from junior all the way up to like an SEO manager, ended up working at a few brands in-house. Realized I actually quite liked search. It was quite fun. The only thing was it was a massive transition because, as you know, social is very reactive, and it's very much like trend focused and intuition based, whereas SEO is very data led and very much numbers, which was something that was completely different to me. Like I said, I wasn't a big fan of traditional education and school and stuff at the time, but it kind of opened my eyes up to, if I can learn this side as well, this is going to have so much of an impact on the rest of my marketing career. So I worked in search for a little while now, and during that time I learned all the skills I need to do from data, tried as much experimentation, ended up building a few of my own websites on the side as well. And I think because of those kind of side projects that I was working on, my own experimentation, I think because I've been so involved with marketing outside of my job, it ended up leading me to progress a bit more quickly within my career. Ended up doing that, and then I recently was at HomeServe, and whilst I was HomeServe, I actually got a message from our founder at Rise at 7, Carrie, and she messaged me saying, "Oh, I've got this role in mind. I think you'd be great for it." And then interviewed here, and then ended up realizing that there's a kind of combination between social and search going on right now, and it was everything that I was talking about that everyone at Rise was talking about. So it just felt like the natural progression, and that's me, and now I'm here basically.
Excellent.
Awesome.
And Ray, on that sort of progression,
Mm.
obviously you're still quite young and global head of marketing at probably one of the biggest agencies in the UK, if not globally. Is there any sort of progression hacks that you can sort of give for maybe sort of juniors starting off? Because yeah, you've sort of leapt right to the top or very high up on the ladder anyway, for somebody your age.
Yeah, I think definitely one thing that a lot of times because during my career so far, I've interviewed a lot of big companies, and I've kind of realized that often the traditional way of getting an interview or getting a role has been based off years of experience. Everyone always looks at years of experience as a factor. And for me, the difference was I always came with results rather than just offering my experience. So I'd be like, this was the case study I did for X brand, and this is the results that I achieved at the end of it. And I think that's what helped me progress so quickly, because instead of saying I was here for like 4 years, 5 years, well, okay, I wasn't, but within that 1 year that I was there, this is the things that I achieved, how I did there, or these are, even if I didn't achieve much during that time, these were the problems I faced and how I dealt with them. And I think being able to just explain that and talk to people about that works really effectively, especially during the interview stage. The other thing I think is a massive thing is talking about what you do, like really sharing all the stuff that you're working on, because there's people that are listening. You don't have to have a huge following for people to be able to see that, oh, that person there knows about this new thing that's happening. They're really passionate about it, and they're sharing real data, real life case studies about this. That's someone I want to speak to. So that was kind of some of the things that I would say that worked for me. There are a few other bits that you can do as well, like in terms of outside of work projects, I think are very effective, because you can do a lot of work, but sometimes you're restricted by other stakeholders. You're restricted by company regulations. There's things that hold you back from moving forward. But if you're able to go outside of work, and like for me, example, I built small mini project sites, especially within my SEO career. I was like very early on, as soon as I found out that niche sites and making your own website was a thing, I was like, oh, I want to kind of try that. I've learned this at work. I've had, X amount of time spending with my SEO manager very early on in my career. She taught me so much about SEO that I just didn't really, stuff that I would never have learned if it wasn't for her. And I thought, I can take this and do this for myself now. Went on to go build up my own site, ended up noticing, oh, this works. Oh, actually, this doesn't work. This gave me a complete roadmap of like, here's how to actually make a website rank. And then from there, I was able to go and do like freelancing. So during that time, I've done a lot of freelancing, had my own consultancy. And I think that's what really helped me to just transition. The only negatives with that is it meant that I had no free time. It meant that literally during that entire time, I had no social life. For the last couple of years, I think I've really kind of doubled down on like career and focus. But I think if you want to progress quickly, you have to kind of do that. Sometimes, not always. For some people, it works out, and they can make it like. And some people think that's not a focus. That's fine. But at the time, for me, that was a massive focus for me, and I think it's helped me a lot to get where I am today. And I think the final thing, in terms of hacks, I would say, is mentorship. You have to find people in your career, people that you meet along the way that can teach you. So I think I've been very lucky at every role I've had a really strong manager, someone who has spent a lot of time helping me to develop. And that's what's really helped me to get where I am today. Especially my first ever SEO role, my manager, she was really good. She taught me so much about SEO, how to be better as a marketer, how to think more about technical SEO, content SEO, all the things that I need to learn. And that helped me progress very quickly. Same thing in a bunch of the other roles I've had. I've always had a really strong manager who's given me advice on branding, marketing, content, stakeholder management, all these key skills that if someone who hasn't done it before doesn't show you, you have to learn on your own. So I was lucky enough to learn from their mistakes and then take that and then go and basically execute that myself.
Excellent. Love it. Yeah, I've got about 20 follow-up questions, but I'll try and sort of cut it down. You mentioned about sort of the freelancing and sort of building your own sites and things like that. When somebody is starting off, maybe working with like local businesses, local service companies and stuff like that, trying to grow out their freelance, I know we mentioned it, we talked about before about in terms of like pricing and the difficulties with that. Is there any advice on people on how they can sort of position themselves and sort of working with local clients, how they can work out sort of a pricing model that sort of fits them?
Yeah, that's so subjective, and I feel like in our industry you can get so. I mean, it's interesting because I was speaking to my friend the other day, who he's just recently gone freelance, and he's really good at what he does, and he was on the impression, like, I won't say the exact amounts, but he was charging X amount, but he was massively undercharging for the value that he can bring. And I think a lot of people fall into that trap. When you go freelance, firstly, you end up going into this mindset of, especially if you quit your job immediately, you've gone, okay, I need to make money. Like, I just want to make money wherever I can. The other thing is, if you're doing it as a side hobby, you think to yourself, oh, I can't give too much effort because I've got work as well. So I need to price myself at a point where I can give enough energy whilst also being able to provide enough value for this client. And I think that's the issue. A lot of times most of the time, I think the main thing is people undercharge massively. They see the value that they don't understand the value that they're giving. They just see it as, I'm doing this part-time, maybe if it's a side project, but they don't understand if you've got another business on the other end, you're providing a lot of value to them. You have to be charging correctly. Yeah. So when it comes to the price point, I think it's looking at how much value do you think you can show, how many years of experience you've got in terms of how much work not in terms of like actual years, but how much effort you've put into getting your craft to where it is now, and then pricing yourself according to that. Another good thing that I found during that time was entering the group chats with freelancers. Super helpful because you get an idea of what other people are charging at the time. So that's the way that you can look at it.
Okay, interesting. And just one more before I let Shred crack on, but just out of curiosity, it just came to me. I don't know if it would work or if it's something you've ever done before, but with companies, particularly probably in the e-commerce side of things, where you can see sort of the revenue growth, is there a way where you can charge like a baseline for your work and then maybe like a commission structure based on revenue growth from organic or socials?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, rev share is huge, and I know a few people doing it. I personally haven't worked on a lot of e-commerce sites. I've worked mostly with B2B and finance companies. So on the e-com side, though, the people that I do know that are doing, the ones that I think they've scaled their freelance and agency side of things quite quickly, especially with e-com, is through rev share. Because if you can show the results, you have enough confidence to show that, and alongside that rev share, you have a baseline amount that you're charging that allows you to continue to work throughout that time. That allows you to scale massively. So I think it's a huge opportunity to bring more revenue into the company, and two, to actually get more buy-in, especially right now. It's very competitive in agency space. It's very competitive in freelance space, especially where you're competing against people who are going to undercharge massively. So you can go in and charge a baseline and go, I'll do rev share, but you're confident in your ability. You can deliver on the other end. You're going to grow a lot quicker, and people will be more happy. They'll recommend you to their friends. Oh yeah, this person, I'm paying them X amount, and this is how much they're making me. And I think referrals are massive within freelance. Like, you can do as much marketing, personal brand as you want, but referral is literally one conversation can lead to someone DMing you just because you've done good work, or like 10 people DMing you, just them sharing. Oh, if they're in a group chat with a bunch of other founders and they go, this person has just helped grow my business from X to Y, all of a sudden you've got a load of people who have heard from a trusted source that you're good at what you do.
Yeah, love it.
Awesome. I feel like I'm going to be like taking this conversation way back, but when you first, you mentioned that you had first started with Instagram accounts, and one of the accounts got taken down. And I was quite interested from your journey from that and then going straight into head of social and organic growth over at ZZ. And I wanted to sort of ask you, how did like having an Instagram account affect you during that time, and how did you what lessons did you learn from that, and how did that sort of help you sort of go into your next role over at head of social and organic growth over at ZZ?
Yeah, so during that time actually was when, if you look back to that, was probably like 9 years ago now, and that during that time, like, social was obviously happening, but it was very much Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook pages were Facebook in general was where organic growth was happening. So it meant that it was very new. There wasn't a lot of people that really understood it. So because of that, I was able to leverage the ability that I'd already grown accounts and I'd already done things. And during that time, it wasn't just like I had my main account. I'd also grown a collection of meme accounts and other accounts in different niches. One was like a health niche, one was just funny memes, one was reaction videos, one was about rappers. Like, all of these different accounts were in different niches. So as a result, I had a bunch of case studies within social that I could go. At the time, though, I didn't know they were case studies. I just saw them as like, oh, I knew how to get followers on Instagram. So when I went to actually get a job and actually work on these roles, I saw the opportunity come up. It was actually for a friend who said, oh, these guys are looking to do marketing and they want to do social media. And I went in, had a conversation, literally instantly saw like there was a growth opportunity there. And the way I was speaking now, I'd probably speak it more corporate. I would say, like, you know, this is how I can help you grow X amount of revenue. Back then I was like, well, actually, if you just do this, you can gain X amount of followers. If you do this hack, or if you post content consistently about this subject, people are going to see that. If you share it, at the time, there was a massive thing about partnerships and getting shout outs from different accounts that worked really effectively. And I was like, yeah, we tried this, and that was one of the tactics that we tried back then, and it worked really well. And that's what ended up landing me that role. And during that time, I was also freelancing as well. So it was like I was able to do a bunch of other things and experiment. And around the end of that is when TikTok started to really pop off. So no one really understood TikTok on there, but TikTok was just giving free reach. So I was ended up doing videos for different brands that were just getting so much visibility, so many views that no one else had really seen, because at the time TikTok was just giving out organic reach. And then I eventually realized, oh, there's a system to this. In the first couple of seconds, if someone watches for X amount of time, all of a sudden people end up, you know, more people like it. If you actually get more saves, if people share, and that's when I started to understand, oh, there's algorithms behind this. But it wasn't until I entered the SEO space that I understood, wow, there's a whole content strategy that you can put behind this, and there's all this other stuff that you can do. It's not just thinking of it as these are the things that game the algorithm. It took me to a higher level of thinking of, this is the overall strategy. This is where you have to look at, understand who your customer is, understand their pain points, create content that targets that, and then layer on all these different tactics and all these different things that the algorithm cares about. Because once you've got that steady baseline, all of a sudden you can grow really quickly. But yeah, that's kind of how I took that, ended up getting that role there, that transition. That's how that period happened.
Awesome. And were there any bottlenecks at the time that you were struggling with that you could recall of in terms of sort of leadership or communication and reporting during that time that junior marketers can sort of take from this?
Yeah, there's always attribution. I think if you work in organic, attribution is always going to be a really difficult thing. In SEO, that's a lot easier because you have all the tools to track that. If you work in social, it can be a lot more difficult, especially if you're looking at website traffic, where that website traffic's coming from. And I think attribution has always been my most difficult thing, because with organic marketing, whether that's across social, search, brand, PR, all these different things, they all create like almost like a long tail effect. Let's take B2B, for example. If you're a junior marketer in B2B and you've been tasked with not doing the traditional creating a funnel and building MQLs that way, you've been tasked with creating campaigns and making noise, but they still want to see attribution off the back of that. It's really difficult to see where these leads are coming from, because it might take 3 months from someone seeing an organic piece of content before they convert. And the best way to go around that is to have a look at it in more quarters, see how many MQLs come in quarters, making sure you've got good questionnaires set up for reporting. So when people do fill out forms, or if they're coming from certain channels, especially in GA4, like you can see like where they're coming from. So in terms of, are they coming from organic social specifically? It's about having those reporting things set up to give you as much backing as possible. And also looking at other metrics as well. Branded search is really good. So if you've done an organic campaign and a month later, that's the main piece of marketing you've done, and there's nothing else really going on around your business or brand, and you've seen your branded search go up, it's a good indication that worked, because people are then searching for you. So there's a bunch of things, but attribution, I think, is the main thing. And I think junior marketers, you're going to have that battle at the start, but just know you're going to have that battle throughout your career. It's just something that's always going to be there, basically. So you got to be ready for it.
And Ray, you've chatted a lot about the importance of social search, and obviously trying to hit like younger generations through that as well. Rise at 7 position themselves as the search first creative agency. Why is that, and what's the sort of the reasoning behind that?
So it's interesting, really, because we use this framework called demand and discovery. So Carrie, our founder, actually says this story about why she founded Rise. So there was a John Lewis advert a little while ago. So it's a few years ago. I don't know if you remember it, but there was a piano featured within the John Lewis advert. And when that advert happened, what Carrie noticed was, she noticed that searches for pianos had gone up massively. People were searching for piano a lot because this John Lewis advert, they poured so much money and effort and time into it, and it went really well. All of a sudden, that piano was what people wanted to buy, or searches in general for pianos. There's been a lot of interest that was created for it, and that drove a load of demand. What she realized was, when you searched piano for sale or pianos or something like that, what came up was, it wasn't John Lewis that was ranking. It was actually some company, I believe it's in Cornwall, Gear for Music, I think they were called. And she messaged them and said, "Oh, I bet you've had a really good Christmas," because they were ranking top, and they were like, "Yeah, this has made us, it's made us millions. Like I'm a millionaire now because people have ended up buying so many pianos off me as a result." And what she discovered was, you can make all this noise and you can have all this demand that's created, but if you can't capture it on the other side, you're basically using all that time, effort, and energy and giving it over to your competitors. So that's where this whole search first thing comes from, because it's about, you can do all of these different channels, PR, brand, social, all these different things. But in order to capture that on the other side, you need to be able to have it. You need to be able to rank for it. So you need to think from a search first mindset. So here at Rise, we do that across everything. So it's like social search is search first. So if you do PR, search first. Brand, we think of it by using data and combine it with intuition. It's bringing these two together.
Excellent. And how has AI affected that, particularly sort of on the social side of things?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, because I suppose there's a lot going on with AI right now. The channel in itself, like, I mean, you probably had your experience with AI overviews. There's a lot of people that are talking about how you can optimize for it now, and I don't think there's a definitive answer yet, and I don't think a lot of people understand it because it's still quite new. PR, I believe, plays a massive part in it, because if you take like an AI model, if you look at, let's look at OpenAI, for example, for ChatGPT, or even if you look at Google, they have partnerships with certain publications. That's what they train their data on. So they might be partnered with the New York Times, for example, but there's a bunch of them. There's like 10 to 100 different publications that they rank as authoritative, that they pull this data from. They also pull it from a bunch of other sources. But if you can position yourself from a PR perspective in these publications, you have got a higher chance of the data being trained on you being relevant for your service. Let's say New York Times covers you for being an expert or being related to, I don't know, pest control services, and someone's looking for pest control services in a certain location, and that data set has been trained on that. There's high likelihood that you're going to show up in there. Now, this is still new. So again, that's not the only way to show up in that, but there's a lot that's changing in the industry as a result of it. And I think a lot of people, even myself included, we don't really completely understand it yet.
Excellent.
Awesome. It transitions quite nicely into TikTok. You mentioned you sort of slightly covered it in your previous question, but I was quite interested in the fact that you did start in TikTok when TikTok was just unheard of at the time. And how have you've naturally grown with TikTok and how it's evolved over the past few years and its boom over COVID and stuff. What's your take on what it was to what it is now, and I guess maybe the future of using it as a tool in marketing?
Yeah, I'd say TikTok is definitely a central part of my career, and I think it's been a massive, it's just been involved at nearly every kind of stage of the journey, whether that's me creating content, whether that's me working with brands. And it's interesting because I was talking to the team here at Rise, the social team here at Rise, and our director of campaigns and social, he mentioned how the industry has changed massively over the last couple of years because of TikTok, this whole TikTokification of social media, where instead of having a follower graph, you have this interest graph. People aren't trying to follow people anymore. They want content to come on their feed that they're interested in. It doesn't really matter if it's a certain particular person that comes up. They just want to see content they're interested in. Like when you scroll on your For You page, how often do you see a piece of content from the same creator, but you're not even following them? They just come up on your feed quite often. And I think that's one of the massive things that TikTok has done, is it's changed all of social, where we want to have more information and we want it to be from multiple different sources. There's various reasons for why this has worked, but TikTok just seemed to have captured that, and as a result that spread across all these other platforms. But whilst that's been happening, because of this interest, because of us looking for, wanting to see these things coming up on our For You page, it's connected with search, because you will see something. And I don't know if you guys have heard of this thing called the messy middle. So messy middle is this framework from Google where basically it's usually used for paid marketing, and it talks about how something will trigger you, that trigger, whether that's an influencer post, let's say you wanted to buy a hoodie from Gymshark or something like that, right? So, or no, let's say that you wanted to buy a hoodie or sports piece of clothing, right? You see an influencer post, oh, this hoodie from Gymshark is really popular, done a really good piece of content, a bit social creative, and you've gone, oh, that's sick, I actually really want to buy that. But then you're like, should I buy that? Or should I look at, like, are there any cheaper alternatives? Or you go through this kind of evaluation phase and exploration phase. So what ends up happening is, as you go from trigger, I'm trying to explain how the diagram looks, so it's not great, but as you travel from trigger into exploration, what you end up doing is you end up going from all these different places. So initially it might have just been that you went to Google and you looked at all these different websites, but now what's happening is you have the ability to actually go to TikTok and go to search and go Gymshark hoodies or sports hoodies, best sports hoodies, and you actually do that sort search within TikTok. And then what ends up happening is you go, actually, let me evaluate that and whether that is the best deal. And then you might go to Google and do another search. And then eventually you go into this purchase phase where you end up buying it. But what that's done is, because of this whole interest-based algorithm, how consumers have changed their search behavior over the last couple of years, as a result, people are actually actively searching on these different places. So it's meant for me, as TikTok has grown within the search space, especially because I come from a social background and then transitioned into search, it's allowed me to have the skill sets of both and kind of be able to understand how that's grown and how brands can then take advantage of that.
That's what I was about to ask. How does it affect branding that for you, Paige? Because obviously people aren't following people anymore. They're just wanting that sort of content. How difficult is it now to sort of grow out that branding and get that sort of cult following?
And that's where touch points come into it. So it's like, you've probably heard of like the whole 7 to 8 touch point theory before, maybe in marketing, where someone has to see your brand X amount of times before they trust you enough to buy from you. And it gives you an opportunity from a few points. So firstly, organically, if your content is coming up, whether that's a content creator that's posted about your brand, or whether that's you who's created a piece of content about your brand on your brand's channels across Instagram, TikTok, Google, Reddit, Pinterest, wherever it is, they've seen and they've interacted with your piece of content. Then they go away and they Google, let's say we're booking a holiday, right? So let's say they Google best hotel in Spain, and they've already seen your hotel come up on TikTok. They've seen your hotel being posted by an influencer on Instagram. Now they've gone to search, and what's come up is a bunch of different results. And the first result organically from Google is you listed on Trustpilot. Underneath that, because Google now pulls in TikTok and Instagram videos as well, then it's your videos, those same videos that were posted on TikTok have now come up. All of a sudden, they're like, this brand must be really good. Subconsciously, we start to think, oh, this brand must be decent because they are being pulled in from all these different places. I feel like I've heard of them before, even if it's, an influencer that's mentioned them, even if it's a post that comes up. So it actually gives you more of an opportunity to be able to pull in, to be able to, as a brand, be shown and visible in all these different places. Also as an SEO, because one interesting thing I hear a lot of times, especially over the last year, I think since AI, is a lot of SEOs have become quite nervous about where their career is going to grow, right? So they're kind of like, they're in that phase where they're like, I don't know, I spoke to a lot of people where they've been like, oh, I don't know if I want to keep doing SEO because I feel like AI is going to replace it, or, SEO is dead. We always hear SEO is dead every couple of years. But the thing that's changed now is I think that it's more alive than ever, because if you look at Google is pulling in social videos. So it's pulling in, because of perspectives and because of a bunch of other changes, it's pulling in content creators' videos from TikTok. It's pulling in forum comments from Reddit. It's pulling in LinkedIn articles. These are all social platforms. And it means if Google's pulling them in, not only are people searching on the platform, but Google understands that people want these answers from these particular platforms, and users want them in that native format. They might, let's say you search for recipes, you might not want to read that recipe, you might want to actually watch it on a video because it's better for the user to see it from that perspective. So as a result, as SEOs, our skill set is massively in demand because we can really understand what people are searching for because we have the data. We can then contribute that to the social, the PR, the brand team, and go, well, actually, there's a bunch of interest around, I don't know, let's say you're a restaurant brand, and there's there's a bunch of interest around Greg's doing this, and we can see from the search data, maybe we should do something similar to it. That just gives you a trend off the back of it. But then you can also look at your user insights, so you can go, well, for our brand, we can see that a load of people are coming to our website already for this particular topic. It's getting less searches on Google, but it might be an interesting piece of content that we can actually try on social. So let me pass this over to the social team as an idea. They generate some content off of it. Boom. They don't have to think with intuition anymore. You've got data to back it.
Yeah. Yeah. Unreal.
It's actually a side question, but we've obviously been chatting to a lot of SEOs in the SEO Leadership Webinar, and they've been chatting about how they've been trying to tackle, like appearing in LLMs now and ChatGPT and things like that. How have you been tackling that with your like departments to help sort of, have you been speaking about that? Has those been conversations, and has there been any sort of like way to work around that and help sort of supplement each other?
Yeah, I think one thing I definitely mentioned before is about the whole use of PR and coverage to get seen.
Okay.
I think that's one very powerful tactic.
Okay.
It's also ensuring that especially when it comes to, like, let's say all LLMs are, I don't know, I'm not smart enough to understand exactly how LLMs are trained,
Yeah.
but my understanding of them is that they are trained based on their own separate different training data sets. So Google, for example, I assume uses the available data they have and then also scrapes what's available in their own platform. So if you're already ranking well, you've optimized your page well, I would assume that helps you rank. I don't think that there's much that you can do at this time, though. I think that we're still in a learning phase and a lot of brands are still understanding it. I might be completely wrong. Our SEO team might have a complete way of doing this, so they're going to hate me saying that. Yeah. That's
awesome. I guess 2 quick questions before we wrap up. The first one is, how do you balance sort of virality versus consistency, especially with something like TikTok, and producing content for your brand? What's your take on it?
Yeah, that's a really good question, actually. Yeah, there's a few different ways to looking at this. So I think search plays a massive part in this. So let's say we've got like every brand that's doing a social campaign. When you put together a social content calendar, often there's BAU times a period, and there's times where you do specific campaigns. So you might have your normal day-to-day content that kind of keeps your feed full or still engages your customer in some way. But then there's campaign periods where you might push out specific videos that you actually have an idea that they might go viral. You can't really predict if it's going to go viral, but you think it's going to do really good because you've done a bit of research and you think it'll resonate really well with your audience. That's really good. That's kind of the viral side of things all covered. Like, that's the type of content you're creating. But during your BAU periods, your business as usual periods, where you need extra content, you need to fill the feed. You can take search data and you can look at what people are interested in, and you can create content off the back of that to then balance out the two. So a good way to look at this is understanding from a point of view that people will always want answers to things. So your BAU content has the opportunity to consistently answer that. You can always provide content based on that search data. And often what happens is people think of this as, oh, this has to be quite boring content because, let's say you're a gym brand and you're doing, I don't know, I'm talking about gym brand because my life has been completely gym since New Year, New Me, all that. So it's looking at it from like, okay, you might look at it as like, oh, this is how to do an exercise. That's getting a lot of searches on Google, or that's getting a lot of searches on TikTok. We know this is quite a popular subject. Let's just do a tutorial video. But instead, what you can do is you can actually still make that interesting. And this is where the social and search element comes into it, because you've got the search data to say that's being searched for. But then if you go to your social team and you go to them and go, is there a creative spin we can put on this? Is there something that we can turn this into a trending piece of content rather than it just being me talking at the camera and saying, this is how you do this exercise, or someone from the social team doing that? And they'll go, there's this trend that you can do that will be related to that. And then when you post it, it's more likely to feel more native in the feed. So then it looks less like it's search-driven content and more like social content, but it's still backed by search data.
Interesting. Last question before we wrap up. Carrie obviously has been smashing it on LinkedIn with her personal brand, and you too. I've been loving the videos that you've been posting out. It wouldn't be complete without asking you, at the Global Head of Marketing, for your take on the importance of personal brand on LinkedIn, and any tips for our listeners that want to take away something to build on their personal brand.
I think of it in two ways, because I saw a post the other day, I think from the gentleman who started Crafted, I believe it is, and he put up a post.
Yeah.
Did you see it?
Podcast.
Yeah, he put up a post something about how saying like, you know, you can build a £10 million business and not ever post online as your personal brand. So, and I think that's really important to know, because you don't need it. I don't think you need it. I know loads of people in their career that have absolutely smashed it and never posted once on LinkedIn. They see me post on LinkedIn, they're like, that's great, but I would never do that. And you know what I mean? So I think that's one thing, is don't put pressure on yourself to create a personal brand. However, that being said, I do 100% think that personal brand has definitely impacted my career. I definitely impacted the careers of many people that I've worked with over the years. When they've started posting, it's helped them land more jobs, clients. Like every single majority of freelance clients that I've worked with have come to me via LinkedIn because they've seen a post. And interestingly, it's never really been a post that it's been like, oh, I did this for this brand. It's been a personal story. If I've shared something that's gone on in my life and they've messaged me saying, I really resonated with that, blah, 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 let's jump on a call and have a conversation. And it turns out that it's actually, you know, there are ways that we can, like, I can help them or we can work together. So I think it's important to do that. I think it's important to share what you're passionate about online as well, because the other thing is, I think a lot of people just copy what someone else is doing online. They just go, this type of content is working, I'm going to just share the same thing. And I'm a big believer in, if you want to stop people scrolling, especially in this world where everyone's posting online, you have to be different. And the only way to really be different is to post as yourself. Now, everyone gives that generic advice of be yourself online. Like, that's true, but it is very kind of like stereotypical, like everyone just says be yourself. But what I mean by that is, show the elements that you feel passionate about, the things that feel easy for you to talk about. On top of that, don't feel like you have to stick to a really, you know, strict posting schedule. Yes, posting consistently is part of it, and you need to show up on people's feed at some point in order to grow a personal brand. It's true, but you don't have to be like posting 5 times a week. You could post once a week and make it relevant, make it important. Interact with other people's content. When you don't want to post and you've seen someone else post a piece of content that's actually interested into your audience or interested to what you're interested in, drop a like on it, drop a comment. Like, people don't realize the amount that, especially on, you've probably seen this week, LinkedIn has released that they're showing impressions on comments. The reason being is because this is a very community driven platform. And I'm still learning a lot about the algorithm the more I experiment with it. But from the people who I know who have grown huge followings on this platform, they've all said the same thing to me. You need to be commenting on your friends and your connections posts. You need to be interacting with them in order for it to push out your content as well. If you're seeing someone's post that is very relevant to your industry and you're just swiping past it because, you know, you don't feel like, maybe you got imposter syndrome, you don't want to comment on that, you feel like, you know, it's not something that's relatable to you completely, or, you know, you don't completely agree with it, or I don't know, there's different reasons why people don't comment or like, but don't miss that opportunity to support them, but also to give yourself some confidence to post. And the other thing is followers. I think one thing I heard recently from somebody that I work with, they're getting into posting on LinkedIn. They said, well, I don't really have a lot of followers. And I think, Darius, we had this conversation in San Diego.
Reminds me of somebody else.
And then I actually said, I don't have a lot of followers, but I'll tell you now, like, sometimes I've had posts that get over 500,000 impressions, and I get DMs from some really cool people just because they've seen the content I post online. You don't need a lot of followers to grow yourself. You just need to know what you're not even know what you're talking about. Just put an idea out there. Ask a question. If you don't know, the best way to start is by asking a question. So don't put too much pressure on yourself. Just share what you're passionate about, get started, and it's as easy as that.
Awesome. Very motivational way to end the webinar. But yeah, Ray, thank you so much for coming on. It was such an interesting conversation. Thank you for staying a little bit later to get those extra questions out, but we were just enjoying this conversation so much. And yeah, for anyone that is listening, make sure to go follow Ray and also engage with his posts and everything. All the tips that we've just given. But yeah, and we'll be putting this up on YouTube and Spotify on Tuesday. So yeah, you can check it out again. And yeah, Ray, thank you again so much for joining, and we'll chat soon.
Amazing. Thanks so much for having me, guys. Appreciate it. It was well fun.
Awesome.
Cheers.